The slap landed before the room could breathe. The glass shattered against the marble floor, exploding into bright, dangerous pieces. Every conversation died mid-sentence. Cards froze in midair. Chips stopped clinking. Even the music cut out like it had been strangled. Amara stood with her chest rising hard, her palm still burning from the impact. Min-Hoo slowly turned his head toward her. The man beside him was already bleeding from the mouth, shock wide in his eyes. No one had ever hit anyone in this room without permission. Especially not him. "You dare touch my man?" Min-Hoo asked calmly. Amara's voice shook, but she did not bow. "He touched me first." The silence that followed felt heavier than the gun at Min-Hoo's waist. Every worker in the hidden casino had seen death in that room, but none had seen defiance. She had just spoken in a place where even breathing required approval. Min-Hoo rose slowly from his chair. His smile did not reach his eyes. "Do you know where you are, girl?" Amara swallowed. "Yes." "Then you know what happens to people who forget their place." "I didn't forget," she said. "I refused." A few people gasped. Someone dropped a chip. The man she had slapped tried to speak, but Min-Hoo raised one finger and silenced him instantly. Min-Hoo stepped closer to her, studying her face like she was a rare object. "What is your name?" She hesitated. "Amara." He nodded. "Good. That makes it easier to erase you." Before anyone could move, one of Min-Hoo's men whispered urgently into his ear. The words made his jaw tighten. He glanced toward the silk curtain at the back of the room. Then back at Amara. "You were lucky," he said quietly. "Tonight, someone else just became my bigger problem." Amara did not understand what he meant. Not yet. 2 minutes later, a gunshot tore through the back of the casino. The scream came after. People panicked. Chairs scraped. Guards rushed past with weapons drawn. The silk curtain was yanked aside. A body collapsed forward onto the polished floor, blood spreading fast beneath the man's chest. His eyes were open, empty, and shocked. Amara recognized him instantly. The same man she had seen days earlier walking with her missing brother. Her heart dropped into her stomach. Min-Hoo stared at the body without emotion. Then he slowly turned back to Amara again. "See what happens when chaos enters my house?" She felt cold all over. "I didn't cause that. Everything that happens here is my cause," he replied. "And now, so are you." They released her that night. No beating. No threats. That was the worst part. When men like Min-Hoo did nothing, it meant they were planning everything. Amara walked the dark street alone, every footstep echoing too loud in her ears. Her phone buzzed the moment she reached her tiny apartment. "Unknown number. You should have stayed silent," the message read. Her hands shook as she locked the door behind her. She did not sleep. By morning, the interrogation began. Every worker stood in a neat line. Cleaners, servers, guards. All eyes stayed on the floor. Min-Hoo sat calmly at the long table, sipping tea like it was a casual meeting. The body from last night was already gone. The blood was already cleaned. One by one, workers were questioned. "Did you see anything?" "No, sir." "Did you hear anything?" "No, sir." When it was Amara's turn, Min-Hoo's eyes lifted slowly. "What did you see last night?" he asked. Her chest tightened. This was the moment everyone feared. The moment where lies kept you alive. She thought of her brother's smile. His last voice note. The man's dead eyes on the floor. "I saw the man who died," she said. "Before he died." Min-Hoo's fingers paused on the teacup. "And? He was the last person seen with my brother." A murmur rippled through the room. Min-Hoo set the cup down carefully. "You should be very careful with what you accuse dead men of." "I am not accusing," she replied softly. "I am answering your question." The tension snapped tight like a wire pulled too far. Min-Hoo stood up slowly. "Where's your brother now?" Amara's lips trembled. "That's what I've been trying to find out." The slap came without warning. His hand cracked across her face so hard she stumbled sideways. Pain exploded in her cheek. The room stayed silent. "That," he said, "is your warning." That night, her apartment was broken into. Nothing was stolen. Only one thing was added. A phone placed neatly on her pillow. It rang as she stood frozen in the doorway. She answered with shaking fingers. "Hello." Min-Hoo's voice came through clear and calm. "You talk too much for someone who wants to keep breathing." "Where is my brother?" she whispered. Silence. "Then, if you ever say his name again in my house, you will disappear before he does." The call ended. Amara slid down the wall and cried for the first time since arriving in Korea. She knew now. Talking back was no longer the danger. Silence was. If this story is already pulling at something inside you, do not just watch in silence. Comment what you think will happen to Amara, like the video so this story reaches more people, and subscribe now so you never miss the next part of her fight. And now, back to the story. The next day, Her bank card declined at the grocery store. Her work permit showed invalid when she scanned it. By sunset, her boss told her not to come back. Min, who was erasing her piece by piece. But they made one mistake. They pushed someone who already had nothing to lose. That night, Amara visited the only place she had avoided out of fear. The crowded back streets where undocumented workers gathered in shadows and whispers. She showed the dead man's photo to anyone who would look. 3 faces went pale. One man nodded slowly. He recruits. Then they vanish. Where? Warehouse near Incheon. No one comes back clean. Her blood ran cold. That was where her brother was. And Min, who had just taught her the most dangerous lesson of all. Silence was never going to save anyone. Amara did not wait to heal. By the next evening, she was already on a bus heading toward Incheon, fingers clenched around the phone with the dead man's photo. The bus rattled through the outskirts of Seoul, past apartment blocks and dim shops closing for the night. The air smelled of rain and exhaust. She barely noticed. A woman beside her glanced at her swollen cheek. "Are you okay?" she asked softly in Korean. Amara forced a small smile. "I will be. That looks painful." "It's not the worst thing I've lost," Amara said. The woman hesitated. "Are you going to the factories?" "Something like that." They rode in silence after that, but Amara could feel the woman watching her with the quiet sympathy strangers reserve for people walking into storms. She got off near a cluster of warehouses and container yards, the kind of place nobody visited unless they had a reason or a problem. The streetlights here flickered. Somewhere in the distance, a ship horn groaned. She pulled her jacket tighter and walked, pretending like she knew where she was going. Her contact's directions played in her head. Look for the faded red sign. 2 warehouses down. High fences. Few cameras. Strong guards. She saw it after 10 minutes. A low, wide building with high metal fencing, barbed wire coiled along the top like a warning. There were few cameras, but the ones there were moved. A guard in a black jacket smoked near the gate, phone in one hand, boredom in his eyes. Her mouth went dry. How was she supposed to get inside that? She stayed on the opposite side of the road and slowed her steps, just enough to stare without seeming to stare. Through a gap between trucks, she saw a handful of men being led from the building to a smaller side structure. They walked with that slow, heavy drag of people who slept too little and worked too hard. One of them had shoulders like tons. Her breath hitched. She squinted, heart pounding, but a truck rolled forward and blocked her view. By the time it moved, the men were gone. "Damn it," she whispered. The guard by the gate flicked his cigarette and stared at her now. He straightened a little, suspicion replacing boredom. Amara looked away fast and pulled out her phone, pretending to answer a call. "Yes, I'm here." "No, I think I'm lost." "No, I don't see the address." She turned her back to the warehouse and started walking away, pulse thudding in her throat. Behind the fence, the guard spoke into his radio. "There's some foreign woman hanging around. Not delivery. Wants to take photos with her eyes." Face, a voice crackled back. "Black. Tall. Hurt cheek." There was a pause. "Then, let the boss know. He likes interesting problems." Amara's body knew she was in danger before her mind caught up. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but running when you were being watched only confirmed guilt. So she forced herself to walk. One step. Another. Slow. Normal. Casual. Her legs shook. When she finally turned the corner and the warehouse disappeared from sight, she exhaled so hard she almost laughed. It was a broken, bitter sound. "What am I doing?" she whispered. "Chasing ghosts," her fear answered. "Chasing my brother," her heart shot back. Back in Seoul, Min-hoo sat in a private room lit by a single overhead bulb, a file open on the table. Grainy photos of workers. Lists of names. Some real, some invented. Money trails, arrows, accounts. His lieutenant, Jay, stood across from him. The girl went to the Incheon site. Min-hoo's eyebrow lifted. "Alone." "Yes. She's either very stupid or very desperate." "Maybe both," Jay said. "Should I have her removed?" Min-hoo tapped a pen against the table, thinking. "Not yet. People who want something this badly are useful before they die." What does she know? That her brother is connected to us. That he disappeared. That the recruiter is dead. Min-hoo leaned back. And she saw the body. And she still demanded answers in my house. Now she is sniffing around the edges of our business. "She's causing noise," Jay said. "Yes," Min-hoo murmured. "But noise draws attention to where we want it if we are careful." Jay frowned. "You want to use her?" Min-hoo smiled faintly. "I want to see how far she will go. Desperation has a breaking point. When she reaches it, she will either be loyal to whoever offers her hope or she will break completely. Either way, we win." "And if she reaches someone else first?" Min-hoo's smile vanished. Then we miscalculated, and I don't like miscalculations. Keep eyes on her. No contact yet. Let her feel watched. Let her feel cornered. People confess their souls when they think no one will help them. Jay nodded slowly. And her brother? Keep him working, Min-Hoo said. And make sure he never knows she's in danger because of him. Fear is a tool. Guilt is a weapon. While he spoke, Amara sat on her narrow bed in her dim apartment, scrolling through old messages from Tund. His voice notes played softly in the silence. Hey sis, look at this, he had said in one. This place is big. I swear, after a year here, I'll bring you. You'll see Seoul for real, not just in movies. Another message, don't worry, I'm careful. I just need a few good months. After that, we'll laugh about how scared you were. She pressed the phone to her forehead, eyes squeezed shut. You idiot, she whispered. I told you not to trust people who pay too easily. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped. She almost didn't want to look, but she did. A photo appeared. Her, standing across from the warehouse, pretending to talk on her phone. The message followed. If you love your brother, stop looking. Her hands shook so badly the phone nearly slipped from her fingers. Her mind spun. They watched her. They knew. She felt suddenly naked, exposed. Her thin walls, her cheap look, her fake sense of safety, all of it seemed laughable. She typed back before fear could stop her. If you want me to stop, bring me my brother. The typing dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then, you are not in a position to make demands. Silence. Then another message. But you are in a position to make mistakes. Her heart pounded. She stared at the screen until her eyes blurred. If you were in Amara's place right now, with your family on the line and dangerous people watching your every move, would you keep pushing or would you retreat to stay safe? Comment what you would honestly do, like this video if you feel her fear through the screen, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens when she chooses. Now, let's go back to the story. Amara threw the phone onto the bed and stood up so fast the room tilted. No, she said out loud, as if someone had suggested surrender. No. If I stop, he stays there. If I stop, they win. If I stop, who else disappears? She paced the small space, fighting the urge to scream. A neighbor banged on the wall. Quiet, he shouted. She laughed bitterly. You want quiet? Talk to Min-Hoo. An idea crept into her mind, risky and fragile. If she couldn't get into the warehouse, if she couldn't pull Tund out by herself, she needed someone who had power bigger than Min-Hoo's shadow. Police. The word itself made her skin crawl. The officers she had spoken to before had smiled politely, taken her statement, and then done nothing. To them, she was a foreign girl with bad Korean and a missing brother who had probably run off. Not a case. A nuisance. But there had been one man, one detective who had looked at her just a little differently, who had almost said something before his superior shut him down. She grabbed her bag and dug through it, scattering papers and receipts until she found his card, creased and fading. Detective Han Jinwoo. She stared at the number, thumb hovering. If she called him, she might drag him into danger too. If she didn't call, she might be the only one walking into the fire. She took a breath that felt like a cliff and pressed call. The phone rang once. Twice. 3 times. Hello, a man answered, voice guarded. Detective Han, Amara said, forcing her voice to be steady. This is Amara. The girl with the missing brother. There was a pause. I remember, he said quietly. What happened? I found where they're keeping him, she said. And I think the people who run it are the same people who own the place where that man died. Silence. Then, sharper now, what did you do, Amara? She looked at her trembling hand. I talked back to the wrong man, she whispered. And I'm not done talking. Detective Han didn't answer right away. Amara could hear distant traffic on his end, the hum of the city continuing like nothing dangerous had just been said. Where are you right now, he asked. My apartment. Stay inside. Lock your door. They already came in once. Another silence. This one felt heavier. How sure are you about the warehouse? I saw men inside. I think I saw my brother. And they sent me a photo of myself standing outside the gate. They're watching me. Han exhaled slowly. You should not be going anywhere near these people alone. I already did. Amara. You asked me to come back if I learned anything real. I learned something real. He hesitated, weighing something unseen. Meet me, he said finally. Public place. Bright. Cameras everywhere. There's a 24-hour diner near Jongnyo Station. Go now. And my brother? We'll talk when you get here. The line went dead. Amara slipped on her shoes with shaking hands. Every sound in the hallway outside felt too loud. She paused with her palm on the door, listening. Footsteps passed. Someone coughed. A door opened and shut. Life, pretending to be normal. She stepped out. The subway ride felt endless. Every man in a dark jacket made her heart jump. Every phone vibration made her flinch. When she reached the diner, her chest ached with held breath. Han was already there, sitting in a corner booth, plain clothes, coffee untouched. He looked tired in a way that reached the bones. "You look worse than last time," he said. She gave a humorless smile and slid into the seat. "I feel worse." He studied the faint yellowing bruise on her cheek. "They hit you?" "Yes." "Who?" She didn't answer directly. "The man who controls the casino." "Min who?" Han's jaw tightened. That name should not leave your mouth so easily. Then maybe he should stop stealing people's lives so easily, she snapped. A waitress came by. Han ordered for both of them without asking. When she left, he leaned forward. "Everything you know. From the beginning." So Amara told him. About the slap. The gunshot. The dead recruiter. The messages. The warehouse. The photo they sent her. By the time she finished, Han's coffee had gone cold. "This is bigger than a missing persons case," he said quietly. "I know. It's organized trafficking and forced labor tied to a major criminal network." "I know. And you walked into it alone with your face uncovered." "I know," she whispered. "I was looking for my brother, not strategy." Han stared at her, conflict clear in his eyes. "If I officially file this, it will take time. Warrants. Surveillance. Evidence strong enough to survive the people Min who owns." "My brother doesn't have time," she said. He looked away. Across the city, in a locked warehouse office, Min who watched a grainy live feed on a monitor. Amara and Han sat frozen in black and white, their mouths moving in silent conversation. Jay stood beside him. "She went to the police." Min whose expression barely changed. "Not the ones that matter yet." "She's reckless," Jay said. "No," Min who replied calmly. "She's focused." "That's more dangerous." "What about the brother?" Min whose eyes flicked to another screen showing Tund bent over a table, hands sorting envelopes under guard. "He stays useful." "That is her leash." "Should we tighten it?" "Not yet. Let her hope breathe a little. Hope makes people stupid." Back at the diner, Amara leaned forward. "What happens now?" Han hesitated. "Officially? I pretend you gave me nothing concrete. Unofficially? I'll start digging where I'm not supposed to. And my brother? We can't storm that place without backup. I'd get shut down. Maybe worse." Amara's eyes burned. "So, what am I supposed to do?" "Disappear," he said softly. "For a little while. Stay out of sight. They already know where I live. Then I'll arrange somewhere else." She shook her head slowly. "If I run, they win time. And if you stay, you might die." She met his gaze. "If I stop, my brother stays trapped. I already made that choice the night I talked back." Han looked at her for a long moment. Then, against his own better judgment, he nodded once. "You are either very brave or very foolish. Probably both." That night, as Amara lay on a narrow cot in a small safe room Han had arranged, her phone buzzed again. "Unknown number." "You met the policeman," the message read. Her pulse spiked. "He can't help you," another followed. "And he will suffer for trying." She sat up slowly. "Touch him," she typed back, "and the world will hear everything." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Then, "You think the world listens to girls like you?" Tears burned her eyes, but she typed anyway. "They will when I scream loud enough." Across town, Min who read the message and smiled. "Good," he murmured. She found her voice. The next morning, Han returned with food and news. "Your former boss filed you as a no-show. Immigration is already flagging your documents." "They're suffocating me legally now," she said flatly. "Yes." "What about the warehouse?" "I found shell companies connected to it," he said. "It's cleaner on paper than most hospitals." "And in reality?" "In reality, at least 12 missing foreign workers could be tied to it." Amara's hands tightened. "Then we have enough." "Not yet," he said. "We need someone inside to talk." Her heart lurched. "You mean like my brother?" "I mean exactly like your brother." Silence stretched between them. "You want him to testify," she said. "I want him alive long enough to have that choice." Her voice broke. "They're using him as a leash." "And you're letting yourself be pulled," Han replied. She stood up suddenly, pacing the small room. "Then cut the leash," she snapped. "Expose them. Burn the whole thing." Han raised his hands. "It's not that simple." "Nothing is simple anymore," she said. "But I didn't come this far to wait politely while they decide whether my brother is useful today." He searched her face. "If we move too early, Min who disappears. And your brother disappears with him." Her steps slowed. The truth of it hit her like a blow. Outside the building, a black car idled across the street. Jay watched the entrance through binoculars. "She's here," he said into his phone. Min whose voice came back calm. "Good. Let her feel the walls closing. Tonight, we remind her who truly controls time. At the warehouse, Tund collapsed to his knees after 16 hours of work. A guard yanked him up by the collar. "You're slower today," the man growled. "I'm tired," Tund rasped. The guard smirked. "You'll work tired. You'll work broken. You'll work until your sister forgets your name." Tund froze. "My sister?" The guard's eyes glittered. "Oh, you didn't know? She's very brave. Too brave for her own good." Fear ripped through him sharper than any beating ever had. Amara was no longer just searching. She was in the fire now. And Min, who was ready to turn up the heat. Amara did not know she was being watched when she slipped out of the safe room that evening. Han had stepped out briefly, and the silence inside those walls felt heavier than the noise outside. She waited 10 minutes. Then 15. Her nerves wouldn't calm. Something in her chest kept whispering that time was running out. She pulled her hood up and stepped into the street. 2 blocks away, Jay lowered his binoculars. "She's moving alone," he said into his phone. Min, whose voice came back smooth. "Good. Follow at a distance. Let her lead us to whatever foolish plan she thinks she has." Amara didn't go far. Just a small cafe near the corner. She needed air. Normal faces. A reminder that the world still existed outside fear. She ordered tea and sat by the window, hands wrapped around the warm cup. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You shouldn't wander alone." Her breath caught. She glanced around the cafe. Couples talking. A man reading. A barista laughing. "I'm allowed to breathe," she typed. "You're allowed what I allow," came the reply. "You will meet my man in 1 hour. Come alone. If you're late, your brother pays." Her throat closed. "Where?" An address appeared. Close to the river. She stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly. Several heads turned. She didn't care. She didn't have time to think. Only to move. When she reached the riverfront, the sky was already darkening, lights reflecting in broken streaks across the water. The place was quiet. Too quiet. Only one black car waited near the curb. The passenger door opened. Jay stepped out. "You're brave," he said. "Or reckless. I still haven't decided." "Where's my brother?" she demanded. He studied her face. "Alive. For now." "For now is not enough," she snapped. He motioned to the back seat. "Get in." She hesitated only a moment before climbing inside. The door shut with a heavy final sound. The car pulled away. Inside the warehouse, Min, who watched the car approach on a security feed. "Bring her to the office," he said. "It's time we spoke without walls." Amara's heart hammered as the gates rolled open. The same warehouse. The same fence. This time, she was not outside looking in. Inside, the air smelled of metal and sweat. Machines hummed. Men worked silently under watchful guards. Her eyes searched frantically. "Tund," she whispered. Jay pushed her forward. "Don't look too long." They reached an office above the floor. Min, who waited inside, calm as ever. "You came," he said. "You threatened my brother." He tilted his head. "No. I reminded you of consequences." She stepped forward, fists clenched. "Where is he?" Min, who nodded once toward the floor below. A guard dragged Tund into view. He looked thinner. Bruised. Exhaustion clung to him like a second skin. When his eyes lifted and found hers, disbelief flooded his face. "Amara," he breathed. She surged forward, but Jay held her back. "Tund," she cried. "I'm here. I'm getting you out." Min, who watched the reunion without emotion. "You see? Hope." Tund struggled against the guard. "What did you do? Why are they saying your name here?" She swallowed hard. "Because I wouldn't stay quiet." Min, who leaned back. "That is true. And now, because of that choice, your brother is in a very delicate position." Amara turned on him. "This is between you and me." It was Min who said softly. "Until you involved the police." Her blood ran cold. "You followed me. You wore fear like perfume," he replied. It was easy to track. She realized then. The diner. The safe room. Han's concern. All of it had eyes on it. "You're using my brother to control me," she said. Min, who smiled faintly. "Yes." Tund shouted, "Let her go. I'll work. I'll do anything." Amara's chest shattered at the sound of his desperation. Min, who rose and stepped closer to her. "Here's the truth, Amara. Your brother's hands are already very dirty. The money he's helped move cannot be washed off easily. I own his mistakes." "You own nothing," she said through tears. "You only steal." Min, who studied her. "You still talk back. Even now." She met his eyes. "And I will keep talking." His hand snapped out without warning. He struck her so hard she fell to the floor. The room rang with the sound. Tund screamed her name. Min, who crouched beside her. "This is mercy," he whispered. "Mercy would be ending this quickly. But I like to educate." He stood and turned to Jay. Lock her in the side room. Let her think. No, Tun begged. Please. Take me instead. Minhu paused and glanced at him. You already belong to me. They dragged Amara away as Tun shouted and fought, his voice breaking apart behind her. The room was small. Dark. Cold. The door slammed shut. Amara slid down against the wall, sobs tearing out of her. Her face throbbed. Her heart felt like it had been ripped open. I found you, she whispered into the darkness. And I made it worse. Minutes passed. Or hours. Time blurred into fear. The door opened suddenly. Han stood there. Her breath caught in shock. How? Move, he said urgently. Now. She didn't ask questions. She ran. Alarms blared as they tore through corridors. Guards shouted. A shot rang out. Glass shattered beside her. They burst into the open night air. Han pulled her behind a truck as bullets slammed into metal nearby. How did you get in? She gasped. Because someone inside wanted out, he replied grimly. They fled into the shadows as sirens wailed in the distance. Inside the warehouse, Minhu stood calmly on the office balcony, watching the chaos unfold below. Someone betrayed us, Jay said. Minhu's eyes followed the direction Amara escaped. Yes, he said softly. And betrayal always demands blood. If you're feeling Amara's fear right now, imagine standing between your family and a monster with no rules. Would you still run, or would you turn back and fight? Drop your answer in the comments, like this video if her struggle feels real to you, and subscribe now because what comes next will change everything. Now back to the story. In the car, Amara shook violently. You lied, she whispered to Han. You said we had to wait. I still think we should have, he admitted. But we were out of time. One of their accountants flipped. It was enough to get us in the door, not enough to win. And my brother, she cried. Han's jaw tightened. We didn't get him. She covered her mouth, choking back a scream. Behind them, in the warehouse, Minhu stood overturned. You see, he said calmly. Your sister runs fast. Tund glared at him through tears. She will come back. Minhu smiled. I'm counting on it. Amara did not speak for a long time after the escape. The city blurred past the car window like a film she wasn't part of anymore. Her body shook in waves she couldn't control. Han drove fast, eyes locked on the road. He's still alive, Han said finally. That matters. It matters that he's suffering because of me, she whispered. You didn't put him there. I led them straight to him, she snapped. I walked into that warehouse and let them see my face next to his. You walked into that warehouse because you love him, Han replied. Minhu twisted that love into a weapon. That's on him. Her eyes filled again. He told Tund I talked back. He told him everything. Han's jaw tightened. That was deliberate. He wants your brother to associate his pain with your defiance. And it's working, she said brokenly. I saw the fear in Tund's eyes. He thinks I made this worse. They reached a new hideout on the far edge of the city. Smaller. Rougher. No official protection. Han locked the door himself. You're not safe anywhere, he admitted. But this is harder to track. Amara sank onto the floor, back against the wall. Minhu owns the streets. He owns officials. He owns fear. What do I own? Han looked at her steadily. You own his mistake. She scoffed weakly. What mistake? He underestimated how far you'd go once you crossed the line. She stared at him. He thought the warehouse would break you, Han continued. It didn't. It sharpened you. She said nothing. Minutes later, her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A photo appeared. Tund on his knees, wrists bound, blood at the corner of his mouth. Then the message. Come back quietly, and he lives longer. Her scream tore out of her chest before she could stop it. She hurled the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. I'm going back, she sobbed. I can't let him die because of me. Han stepped in front of her. You will not walk into that warehouse again. You don't get to decide that. I do if it gets you killed for nothing. For nothing, she screamed. That's my brother. And if you run back to Minhu, he wins everything in one move, Han shot back. Your silence, your surrender, your fear, your soul. She collapsed, hands in her hair. Then tell me what to do, she begged. Because I'm out of strength. Han crouched in front of her. We flip the pressure. On Minhu, she whispered. Yes. How? We take what he can't afford to lose. His money. His partners. His invisibility. She laughed bitterly. You think a police report scares a man like that? No, Han said. But exposure does. Outside the building, Jay watched through binoculars from a distant rooftop. She's not moving, he reported. Good, Minhu replied. Fear is settling. But she escaped once. Yes, Minhu said calmly. Which is why the next move must be personal. Back inside the hideout, Han pulled out a slim file. The accountant who flipped. His testimony can crack the shell companies. With that, I can pull in financial crimes, not just missing persons. And Tund. We make Min who choose between protecting his empire and holding on to leverage. And if he chooses empire, she whispered. Han met her gaze. Then we move fast before he chooses violence instead. She swallowed hard. He already chose violence. Han nodded. Which means we're on his clock now. That night, Amara dreamed of her childhood home. Tund chasing her through tall grass. Their mother shouting at them to stop running barefoot. Laughter. Warmth. Safety. She woke with tears streaming down her face. In the warehouse, Tund was dragged from his cot and forced back to work. A guard leaned close and murmured, "Your sister runs again today." Tund's heart hammered. "What do you mean?" "She runs or she kneels," the guard said. "Min who decides." Back in the hideout, Han's phone rang. His expression darkened as he listened. "We have movement," he said. "Min who is shifting funds offshore. He smells heat." Amara stood slowly. "Then we strike the scent." Hours later, on a quiet street across the city, a financial office tied to Min whose laundering network was raided. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Clean and silent. Servers seized. Accounts frozen. Within minutes, panic rippled through Min whose network. Jay stormed into the office. "Funds are locked." Several partners went dark. Min whose eyes narrowed. She didn't break. She countered. "We should relocate the brother." Min who paused. "No. He remains where he is. He is still the leash." Jay hesitated. "And if the leash snaps?" Min who stood. "Then she will feel the force of it." That evening, Amara stood beside Han as news quietly spread of frozen accounts and sealed offices. "That was you," she whispered. "That was the beginning," he replied. Her phone buzzed again. A new device. A new number. "You are becoming expensive," Min who messaged. She typed back without shaking this time. "You should see the bill you owe." A pause. Then, "You touched my money. I will touch your family." Her blood went cold. "My brother is not your toy," she replied. "He stopped being yours the moment you spoke in my house." She typed slowly. "You made this personal. You made this public. And you made one mistake." "What mistake?" "You didn't kill me when you had the chance." The dots appeared. Disappeared. Then, "That mistake can still be corrected." Han watched her face. "What did he say?" "He's going to escalate," she said quietly. "So are we." A knock suddenly came at the door. Both of them froze. Another knock. Han reached for his gun. A trembling voice spoke from the other side. "Please. I need help." Amara's chest tightened. "Who is that?" Han peeked through the small camera. His face hardened. "It's one of Min whose workers," he said. "And she's bleeding." The door opened. A young woman collapsed inside, clutching her stomach, blood soaking her shirt. "He killed my brother," she sobbed. "Because I tried to leave." Amara knelt beside her instantly. "Who killed him?" The woman's eyes lifted slowly. "Min who?" The war had its first civilian casualty. And Amara finally understood. This fight was bigger than her brother now. It was about everyone who had been forced into silence. If you were Amara right now, with blood on your hands that isn't yours and a monster pushing harder because you pushed back, would you still keep going or would fear win? Answer honestly in the comments, like this video if her pain feels real to you, and subscribe now because the end of this story will not be gentle. Now back to the story. Amara stood slowly, eyes burning. "He thinks he's teaching me to be quiet," she said. "Instead, he's teaching me how to be loud." Han nodded. "Then we make noise the right way." The girl died before dawn. Amara found out from Han's phone vibrating nonstop on the floor. She picked it up with trembling hands and read the message 3 times before the meaning settled into her bones. She didn't make it. Internal bleeding. Amara sank slowly onto the floor. Just hours ago, the girl had been whispering through pain, begging not to be sent back, saying she wanted to live long enough to testify. Now her voice was already becoming a memory. Han stared at the wall, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles were white. Min who wanted to send a message. "He already did," Amara whispered. Loud and clear. Her phone buzzed. New number. A video loaded. The same girl lay on a cold floor somewhere dark. A man's voice spoke off camera. "You wanted to talk to police," the voice said calmly. "Now you talk to God." A single gunshot followed. The video ended. Amara's scream ripped through the hideout. Han grabbed her as her legs gave out. She sobbed into his jacket, her whole body shaking with grief and rage. "He killed her because of me," she cried. "No," Han said fiercely. "He killed her because he always kills anyone who threatens him. This is who he is." "But I brought her here," Amara said. "She trusted me." Min who had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. By morning, the city was buzzing with quiet fear. 2 more low-level workers vanished. One financial office burned in what the news politely called an electrical fire. Anyone connected to Min-Hoo who wavered suddenly remembered their loyalty. Jay stood before Min-Hoo, face grim. The accountant refuses to talk again. He saw the video. Good, Min-Hoo replied. Fear travels faster than truth. And the woman? Alive, Min-Hoo said. For now. Let her breathe long enough to feel responsible. At the warehouse, Tund was beaten that same morning. Not by guards. By men in suits. Your sister is expensive, one of them said calmly as Tund coughed blood onto the floor. People die when she opens her mouth. Tund sobbed. Then tell her to stop. I'll make her stop. The man smiled. She won't listen. She's too much like you. They left him broken and trembling, with Min-Hoo's laughter echoing in his ears. Back at the hideout, Han slammed his fist into the wall. This is spiraling. It's war now, Amara said quietly. Han looked at her sharply. War eats people like you first. I already lost one, she replied. And I'm not done losing if I stop. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call. She answered without thinking. Min-Hoo's voice came through smooth and relaxed. You're crying again. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. You murdered a girl for trusting me. He chuckled. She murdered herself by trusting you. You inspire very poor decisions. Touch my brother again, Amara said, and I swear I will burn every place that hides your money. You already tried, Min-Hoo said. Look how that ended. She swallowed. You're scared. Silence stretched for one perfect second. Then he laughed softly. No. I'm entertained. The call ended. Han watched her closely. He's enjoying this now. He thinks he owns the ending, she said. That afternoon, the pressure on Han intensified. A senior officer called him in. You're playing with fire, the man said coldly. Pull back. I'm doing my job, Han replied. Your job is to survive long enough to retire, the officer said. Min-Hoo owns people higher than you. Han left the office knowing he had just been warned for the last time. By nightfall, Amara's face was everywhere in Min-Hoo's underground world. Not on news. Not on posters. On whispered descriptions. The woman who hid a man in Min-Hoo's house. The woman who talked back. The woman who brought police near the money. And the woman whose brother would pay for it. That night, the warehouse lights flickered. Power cut out for 6 seconds. When it came back on, 2 guards were bleeding on the floor. A third was missing. Jay burst into Min-Hoo's office, breathless. Someone hit the south side. Took a worker. Min-Hoo's eyes narrowed. Who? Tund. For the first time, Min-Hoo stood up fast. Amara and Han sat in the dark hideout when Han's secure phone rang. His eyes widened as he listened. They lost the brother. Amara shot to her feet. What do you mean lost? Someone took him from the warehouse during a blackout. Her chest seized. Who? Han hesitated. Not us. Silence fell heavy between them. Then who? She whispered. Across the city, Tund was dragged into a dark van, hood over his head. A voice whispered into his ear. Your sister made too much noise. Now we sell you to people who don't negotiate. Tund screamed her name into the darkness. Minutes later, Amara's phone rang again. Min-Hoo didn't bother pretending this time. Your brother has left my hands, he said calmly. Which means even I can't save him now. Her heart shattered. You're lying. I don't lie when things become inconvenient. She slid down the wall, gasping for breath. Bring him back. Min-Hoo's voice softened almost kindly. You should have stayed quiet. The call ended. Han knelt in front of her. Amara, look at me. Her eyes were wild with panic. They're going to kill him. They might sell him, Han said grimly. Which could be worse. She grabbed his jacket. Then we run at them now. We don't wait. We don't plan. We go now. That's suicide. So is sitting here, she cried. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. The city went on breathing while her world collapsed. If you were Amara right now, with your brother torn from even the monster who was using him as leverage, would you still believe there's any hope left, or would you break? Say what you'd do in the comments. Like this video if you feel the terror in this moment, and subscribe now because the final act of the story is about to explode. Now back to the story. Han took a long breath. We don't run blind. Then how do we find him? We follow the chaos, Han said. Someone attacked Min-Hoo without warning. That means there's another power moving. And they took my brother. Yes. Amara stood slowly, fire burning through the tears. Then they're my target now too. Han nodded. Min-Hoo made enemies for years. One of them finally made a move. If we find who hates him this much, we find your brother. And if Min-Hoo finds them first? Han's voice dropped. Then your brother becomes a message. Across the city, Min-Hoo stood alone in his office, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the city lights. Jae approached carefully. We lost the brother. That wasn't part of the plan. Min-Hoo didn't turn. Chaos always charges interest. What do we do? Min-Hoo's eyes reflected cold light as he finally spoke. Now, he said, we stop playing defense. We end this loudly. The city felt different after Tun vanished from Min-Hoo's hands. The fear wasn't focused anymore. It was scattered. Wild. Like a fire that no longer respected its own borders. Han and Amara moved through backstreets and borrowed offices, chasing fragments of whispers. Every contact was nervous. Every answer came half-formed. A rival syndicate moved on the south side, one man said. They've been waiting years for a moment like this. Why no? Amara asked. Because Min-Hoo blinked first. Another contact whispered, they move people through the docks at night. If your brother is alive, that's where he'll pass. By midnight, they had a location. An abandoned freight terminal near the water. Controlled now by a rival group known only as the Eastern Hand. Older. Quieter. Just as deadly. Han stared at the map. If he's there, we don't have legal ground to storm it. It's not Min-Hoo's territory. Amara's voice was hollow. I don't care whose territory it is. Han grabbed her arm. You rush in there and you won't just die. You'll vanish. And no one will even whisper your name. Then whisper his instead, she said. Because I'm not walking away from him again. At the same time, in a glass-walled high-rise above Seoul, Min-Hoo stood before a row of men in dark suits. They took what is mine, he said calmly. And you all know what that means. One man shifted. The Eastern Hand rarely makes first moves without permission. They made it, Min-Hoo replied. Now we take more than they stole. Jae leaned close. And the woman? Min-Hoo's eyes narrowed slightly. She will come to the docks. Pain always draws its owner back. At the hideout, Han's secure phone lit up. His face went pale as he listened. Amara felt it immediately. What happened? They just executed one of our informants, Han said. Left his body on the street with a message carved into him. Back off. Amara's breath hitched. This is spiraling. Yes, Han said. And you're in the middle of it. She lowered herself into a chair slowly. I never wanted this. Han softened. No one ever does. They just want something badly enough to awaken it. Her phone buzzed. New number. A video loaded. Tun sat on a concrete floor, wrists bound, breathing hard. A man stood behind him with a gun pressed loosely against his head. My sister, Tun said shakily into the camera. Please stop. Whatever you're doing, stop. I can't take this anymore. The video cut. Amara's hands flew to her mouth as a sob ripped out of her chest. Another message followed. Come alone to the docks at dawn. Or the next video will be shorter. Han grabbed the phone. This is a trap. I know, Amara whispered. They want to trade you. I know. And Min-Hoo will be there too. I know. Han's eyes locked on hers. If you go there alone, you will not come back. If I don't go, she said, breaking, my brother definitely won't. Silence crushed the room. Finally, Han spoke quietly. Then we don't let you go alone. You just said. I said it's a trap, he interrupted. Not that we can't spring it back on them. You don't have enough manpower. No, he admitted. But I have enough truth. He pulled out his phone. The accountant is ready to talk on record. Amara stared. Now. Yes. He'll die. Yes, Han said again. But so will Min-Hoo's shadow. She shook her head in disbelief. You're trading lives for leverage. Han's voice was strained. Min-Hoo trades lives for silence every day. This is how his silence ends. Across the city, Min-Hoo watched the docks on multiple screens. The woman will come, Jae said confidently. Min-Hoo nodded. She is predictable in that way. And if she brings police? Min-Hoo's lips curved slightly. Then we will show them how small their power really is. At dawn, the sky was gray and heavy with rain. The docks were quiet. Too quiet. Shipping containers loomed like graves stacked on top of one another. Water slapped against concrete in slow, tired waves. Amara walked alone between the containers, hands visible, heart hammering. Every step felt like walking closer to her own execution. Amara. Tun's voice suddenly cried out. She spun. He was tied to a chair near the edge of the dock, bruised and shaking. Two armed men stood behind him. Relief and terror collided in her chest so hard she nearly collapsed. I'm here, she called. I came alone. Let him go. A slow clap echoed from the shadows. Min-Hoo stepped into view. You never disappoint, he said pleasantly. Her heart dropped into her stomach. You said he wasn't in your hands anymore. And now Min-Hoo said, he is in everyone's hands. She looked around in panic. From the opposite end of the dock, men in unfamiliar suits emerged. The Eastern Hand. Two monsters. One battlefield. You brought a war to my doorstep, Min-Hoo said to them calmly. You brought money into our waters, their leader replied. The boy is payment. Minhu glanced at Tund. The boy is bait. Amara screamed, stop. Please. I'm right here. Minhu turned to her slowly. You see what talking back does? It invites larger predators. She shook violently. Take me instead. I already did, Minhu said softly. The moment you spoke. Suddenly, gunfire erupted from both sides. Chaos exploded. Men fell. Bullets tore through containers. Tund screamed as the chair tipped over. Amara dropped to the ground, covering her head, screaming his name through the roar of weapons. From a distance, sirens began to wail. Han's voice crackled through her earpiece she hadn't known he planted in her hair. Stay down. Get him, she screamed. Please get him. I'm trying. Minhu moved through the chaos like a shadow untouched. He reached Tund, grabbed him by the collar and dragged him toward a waiting boat. Amara saw it. Time fractured. She ran. Bullets slammed into the concrete around her. Men shouted for her to stop. She didn't. She reached them just as Minhu shoved Tund toward the boat. She grabbed Tund's arm. Minhu struck her across the face with the back of his hand so hard she tasted blood. You still don't learn, he hissed. She spat blood at his feet. And you still underestimate me. Behind them, Han charged through smoke and shouting. Police. Drop your weapons. More sirens closed in. The eastern hand scattered. Minhu shoved Tund toward the boat and turned to flee. Amara clung to her brother with everything she had. But Minhu paused. He turned back. For the first time, his eyes showed something close to anger. He raised his gun. The world seemed to stop breathing. Han fired. Minhu staggered as the bullet tore through his side. He stumbled back toward the edge of the dock. Amara screamed as Tund collapsed into her arms. Minhu locked eyes with her one last time. You should have stayed silent, he whispered. Then he fell into the black water below. The dock erupted into chaos as police flooded in. Amara held Tund, sobbing uncontrollably. You're safe. You're safe. I've got you. Tund clutched her weakly. You didn't stop, he whispered. You didn't listen. She cried harder. I couldn't. Sirens, shouts, footsteps. The war was over. Or so it seemed. If you were Amara in this moment, watching the man who ruined your life fall into darkness while your brother bleeds in your arms, would it feel like victory or just another kind of loss? Share what you feel in the comments, like this video if this moment hit you, and subscribe now. Now back to the story. Han knelt beside them. We need to move. He fell into deep water. Is he dead? Amara asked through tears. Han looked at the black surface of the river. We won't know tonight, he said. And somewhere beneath that dark water. Minhu's eyes opened. Tund woke up in a hospital room filled with the soft beeping of machines and the smell of disinfectant. His body felt like it had been shattered and reassembled wrong, but he was alive. That truth settled slowly, gently. Then he saw Amara. She sat beside his bed, eyes swollen, face bruised, body slumped forward in a chair that looked too uncomfortable for sleep. Her hand was wrapped tightly around his. Sis, he whispered. Her head snapped up instantly. When she saw his eyes open, she broke completely. Tears poured down her face as she stood and grabbed him. You're awake, she cried. You're really awake. He tried to smile. You didn't stop, did you? She shook her head fiercely. Never. Not for 1 second. For the first time since the warehouse, since the chains, since the threats, Tund let himself cry. Not from pain. From relief. Outside the room, Han leaned against the wall, eyes closed, breathing slowly like a man who had just outrun death. Minhu did not escape. Divers pulled him from the river before sunrise. Barely alive. Bleeding. Still dangerous. He was arrested in chains. For the first time in his entire life, Minhu woke up in a place where power did not answer him. The footage went viral within hours. Minhu, soaked, wounded, cuffed, dragged across concrete while reporters shouted questions he could not silence. The man who once owned fear was now owned by evidence. Raids followed immediately. Warehouses stormed. Accounts frozen. Lieutenants arrested. Shell companies exposed. Men who had never imagined standing in court were suddenly begging for plea deals. Minhu's empire didn't fall slowly. It collapsed like glass under a hammer. In the interrogation room, he finally saw Amara again. She stood on the other side of the glass, no chains on her wrists. No blood on her face. No fear in her eyes. He tried to smile. It failed. You talked back, he said hoarsely. And now everything burns. She met his eyes calmly. You burned it yourself the day you touched my life. For the first time, Minhu had no reply. He was sentenced weeks later. Multiple life sentences. No parole. No political rescue. No shadows left to hide him. The monster was finally locked away where silence could no longer protect him. Han lost his badge. Officially. Unofficially, he became the man no criminal wanted watching their trail. He visited Amara one last time before leaving the city. "You ended something that wasn't supposed to be touchable," he said. "No," she replied. "I just refused to bow." Tund slowly healed. Not quickly. Not cleanly. But he healed. Some nights he still woke shaking. Some days the fear still clawed at his chest. But every morning he woke free. That was the miracle. Months later, Amara and Tund stood outside the abandoned casino. The doors were sealed. The lights dead. The symbol of Min whose power scraped completely off the wall. "This is where it started," Tund said. "This is where silence ended," Amara replied. They turned and walked away together. No shadows following. No footsteps behind them. No fear waiting at the corner. Min who was finished. And Amara was finally free. If this story moved you even a little, don't keep it to yourself. Comment what moment hit you the hardest. Like this video so more people hear Amara's voice. And subscribe now, because silence only wins when people stop speaking. And now, the last question. If you were standing in Amara's place at the very beginning, in that room where silence ruled everything, would you have talked back?